Welcome back to another video. It's quite chilly out here, so I'm going to try to make this brief. The Freedom Factory is in trouble. It's up against quite the challenge. They have segregated all of the land beside it to homes, 4,500 of which. My concerns aren't whether the Freedom Factory and the Cleetus crew have a legitimate reason or case. It's just the disproportionate scale of value for each project. So, big fan of the channel, big fan of the Freedom Factory. I followed it all. I hope to go down one day, partake in events, or at least attend them. That's kind of the goal. Grow YouTube, get some notoriety, and maybe get invited to something someday. So I am a fan. I am rooting for the Freedom Factory if anybody wants to know where my opinion is. However, we're talking about a track that he has spent millions of dollars on, that attracts hundreds of thousands of people a year, probably 100 plus million views a year, especially if you include all the other channels and visitors and other creators that go and all create content at the Freedom Factory. So it's a pretty substantial little hub he's got going on there, and I've always been a fan. I thought since day one he really did it right. He really included his friends and everything to go along with it. But they're talking about building 4,500 homes. I don't know Florida real estate overly well. I know Canada real estate because I live in Canada, but I did just some basic math. If each house averaged out to $500,000 here in Canada, like a small townhouse is anywhere from $600,000 to $750,000. A single family dwelling that's not attached to anything, they're usually $1 to $1.4 million. You want something nice in the country with a little bit of land and distance between your houses, you're $1.6 to $2.1 million. I know, it's insane. Canada's real estate's nuts. So I just did basic math. For 4,500 homes times $500,000 is $2.25 billion. So they are bringing $2.25 billion worth of potential investment into the area. And obviously when you look at Cleetus's, nobody knows the numbers except for him. Let's say he's put $20 million into the Freedom Factory between buying it, fixing it up, sponsorship money. We know some of the projects have been huge, plus buying costs, plus maintenance and wages and whatever. Let's say he's $20 million tied in. We are talking a $20 million company versus $2.25 billion. Obviously, not even the same realm. So I thought I would share some of my experience because I grew up near a racetrack. I grew up in Flamborough, Ontario. And I have drawn you a very crude map of where I grew up. This is Highway 6 North. This is North, East, South, West. This is 5th Concession West. This is Milgrove Side Road. This is Brock Road. This is where I grew up. These are my stomping grounds. Right here is Flamborough Speedway. I believe it is an 8th mile oval. I've never been to it. I just wasn't raised around racing. I wasn't raised around that kind of stuff. So I've never been to the Flamborough Speedway. That being said, my house was approximately 3 kilometers away. I lived on Highway 6. That's 1.86 miles for those of you with the superior calculations. But I digress on that one. So I'm a fairly good distance away. And every Saturday night they would race. I believe they raced like mini stocks. It was like Civics and Cavaliers and Sunfires with basically just straight pipes, fuel cells in the back, and a roll cage. It was not... There really wasn't big horsepower cars. It's a small track. Not a lot of room for speed, obviously. So the noise creation, I would have assumed, especially now that I'm older and been racing and seen how loud some of these louder cars are once you put 427s and they're screaming and all this stuff. Like, I'm on the low end of the scale, and these are the circumstances. 3 kilometers, and every Saturday night we could sit out back, have a little bonfire, and I could hear the cars going. Every Saturday night, without fail, if the weather was good and they were racing, I could sit outside and I could hear them. You knew when they started, you knew when they finished. It was not very well hidden. That being said, it is not on the corner of this intersection. It is in one, and there is, we will grab the blue, there is a embankment all the way around here of at least 20 to 25 feet of dirt, which is what they're proposing for the Freedom Factory, putting some sort of a wall dirt combination to create a 25-foot sound barrier to stop the sound waves from traveling. This has it, and I am 1.86 miles away from the track, and I hear it every single time they run. This was never an issue. I grew up in the country. My dad grew up on muscle cars. Like, you hear cars. You hear people doing business. You hear things going on, racetracks, whatever it is. You hear it because you live, and it's okay. The problem is as society has progressed and population density is important for townships for tax purposes, especially in Canada, people are moving from bigger cities like Mississauga, Toronto, and they're moving out to Flamborough. They're moving out to this quiet little neighborhood that's smack dab between two highways and is conveniently located for a lot of people working, especially working from home. They move into these neighborhoods. They're used to a little bit of road noise. Like, I grew up on Highway 6, 100,000 cars a day. You're so used to it, you don't even hear it. Transport trucks rolling at 60 miles an hour right past my front door all day, all night, and you just don't hear it anymore after a while. It's just a part of living there. But Saturday night kicks off, you're trying to have a nice quiet evening, or the kids are asleep, and the race cars fire up, and all the noise that goes on with that. So I do understand why they're upset. I don't understand why they moved into an area with a feature or something of this nature, like a racetrack. But that's not how real estate sells. It's not how land developers look at it. They more or less look at this and go, oh my God, look at all the farmland. Yeah, you know what? They'll just disappear eventually. So they just start making absolutely absurd number proposals to the counties, like $2.25 billion. And that's me trying to be conservative. Again, don't know Florida real estate market. I know it's drastically cheaper than Canada, so I tried to like third it. But if they're doing, I would assume they're doing varieties of homes. They will have some lower, more entry level, and I don't know what an entry level home in Florida is worth, but everything has gone up so much in the last couple of years, they might not even know. So it's just one of those things where the town cares more about the people moving in and the potential future investment than they do about the businesses and the things that made that town, or make that town notable, or have brought a resurgence to this town. And for all we know, this land is being developed and looked at because they're looking at the amount of tourism in the area, but they're not looking at why the tourism's in the area. So you remove the racetracks, you remove a good portion of the tourism, and all of a sudden it's a less equitable spot to live, but they're not looking at that. They're just looking at the here and now and making a good proposal to the county, which, I mean, it's upsetting. I have my fingers crossed. I hope this video helps. You just can't build within at least 1.86 miles of the track, or people will complain and you will get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of emails, messages, mentions, you name it. It will be endless. I'm not overly optimistic because you have to be a little bit realistic, but Christmas is coming and there's always room for miracles. Smash that like button, hit the subscribe button. Until next time, drive safe, take care, and behave, as always.